How are you uniquely built to lead? How are you uniquely built to make decisions? Not just at work, in your relationships, in your
Hmm.
partnerships, with as a mother, not as a mother. And
Yeah.
so we are really, really intentional about this is not just professional. This is not just for your work. This is also personal. It's incredibly lifestyle. Authenticity was something that I was incredibly passionate. When you do open up honestly, that's when real work gets done. When you're bossy, you're being a leader. You're
Yeah.
being decisive. You're being opinionated. Like you have a voice. You're being confident.
Bossy women are the women who change the world. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm here with Meg Gold, who is the CEO and co-founder of BONDE, which is a curated, vetted community for women mid-career when we are at our busiest and messiest part of our lives, oftentimes. What came about that you decided we need BONDE?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for having me today. I want to start by saying I'm in my comfy Friday outfit today. And I blame my 1-year-old who is 15 or like 15 months old, and he's going through like a sleep depression or
Oh,
sleep
yeah.
regression, not depression. I feel the
No,
depression.
yeah, no, we
Um,
feel that. Yeah.
Yes. And so I was up at like 3:34 in the morning for like an hour just tapping his little like butt. And I'm like, I am not gonna fake it today. I'm exhausted. We're still doing this pod because
Oh,
it's
you
just
didn't
the
even
way.
cancel. You're
No,
amazing.
I mean it's like it's one of those things that I feel like this is life. Like I was
Yeah.
like, this is actually a perfect example of exactly what's going on in the middle of our lives. And I think
Yeah.
so often, and of course we can give ourselves permission to cancel, but this was one of the things that I was like, what a great opportunity to like own it in real time and showcase the fact that like how many times do we get on calls and we don't get to open it up and say like
Yeah.
I was up for an hour tapping my little 15 months old booty because he's
Yeah.
having like he's
Yeah.
having a regression right now. And so anyway, so I'm also wanting to say you get me at my most comfortable best because I was like
Well, I love that.
I'm not getting ready today because I
I,
don't want to.
well, you look pretty ready to
Oh,
me. So
thanks.
this is you must be managing it all fairly well. I remember those, my daughter's now 10. And I remember a lot. I don't want to say she did this for a long period of time. Hopefully yours does it a little shorter than she decided to do it. But she's still a crawling into bed type of person, if I let her, that she would like that,
Yeah.
and then you don't sleep. But
Well, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I have a 3-year-old, and
Okay.
he sleeps with us occasionally, more so when we get to choose when we're like movie night, sleepover,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. And he was doing the typical thing that they do where they like start in a spot and then they start doing the clock
Oh,
where they like
yeah. Yeah.
decide. And finally we were just like, buddy, what are you doing? Like, why do you keep moving so much? And in the middle of the night, he goes, I'm looking for a cold spot. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That would be in your own bed. Your own
Yeah.
bed has a real nice cold spot in it, actually.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So these are the sweet moments I think in our lives that we'll 100% look back in and be like,
Yeah.
remember when we did the butt taps in the middle of the night and the wake ups to sleep with them and all the things. So,
Yeah.
um, well, back to Bond. I think
Yeah.
like the I think there's no secret that community is just incredibly important. And I think community where you have the ability to talk authentically, to pull the curtain back early and often, to talk about personal and professional, just like what we just did. Like we just
Hmm.
talked about the fact that this is what's happening in real life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like work needs to get done because that's just number one, a reality of the resources in which we need to be able to have.
Right.
And number two, because if you're an aspirational person, you also want to do the work. And so finding that balance between, and it's not just mothers within Bond, and it's not, and we didn't intend it to be that way on purpose, but
Hmm.
it's just the life responsibilities that come and then the reality of living, in addition to the aspirations of your goals and life and work and wanting to do meaningful work is something that doesn't need to be done alone. It doesn't need to be done with just you and your partner thinking it through together, which is incredibly valuable. But being able to have a soundboard for other people in a similar time of life, being able to think through and just have a relatable conversation, um, I think there's a lot of power in that, and we've already seen that, play out in a big way. So that's really kind of the start of it, and there's a lot of storytelling inside of that, but that's really kind of the at its core, a huge part as to why we felt the need to build it.
Because you stepped away from corporate leadership to
Yes.
do this. That must have been a big leap of faith. And I'm wondering what like the impetus behind being like, the stability and now we're going to do this. Did you feel like you were missing community in your life or what caused that jump?
Yeah, so the jump happened first.
Okay.
So I was in San Francisco, vice president of private equity, and really grateful for the company that I worked in, grateful for the opportunities it gave me. I met my husband there. I was able to go through multiple rounds of infertility. We struggled getting pregnant, and they were really supportive along the way. So just so many blessings came out of my like corporate roles and
Hmm.
my upbringing within corporate. But I've always felt this like yearning for entrepreneurship. I always felt that I always kind of pushed the grain a little bit. I always kind of felt like I wanted to be like my own boss in a way, not because I wasn't good at being other, not that I wasn't good at having other bosses. It just was the freedom to be able to choose where the path, like where we were going to go.
Yeah.
It was something that made me really excited. I just never knew what that was going to be. And so I wrestled with it a lot. Um, Listened to a lot of how I built this podcast, getting inspired by all the other people who did it. I was in the Bay where they're surrounded by people who are starting businesses and betting
Yeah.
on themselves. And so you just are around this energy. And I was opting into the energy as well on like, gosh, I want in that world, just like, how do you make that leap and how do you figure out what your what is? And at that time, I ended up getting pregnant eventually with my son. And I remember thinking, if I'm not with him, I better love what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
it was no knock on my job, no knock on the people or the company. I just didn't love what I was doing, and I didn't see myself doing it anymore. And
Hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I just knew it wasn't this anymore, especially if it was going to be in exchange for time with my now son.
Right.
And so my husband was super supportive and he said, you know what, go ahead and step away and we'll figure it out. At that time, I was like, I'll find another job, but I don't want it to be in this industry. And I don't want it necessarily to be in this job function because that was just what I chose out of college. And it wasn't what I wanted to do long term, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think in that moment, I recognized very quickly how narrow my network really was.
Hmm.
And it was narrow in a sense that it wasn't well-rounded in industry. It wasn't well-rounded in different job roles. It was very much that industry, the people I worked with, and my past colleagues that maybe went to a like-minded industry.
Hmm.
So I left corporate thinking it'll be very easy. I have 14 years, 15 years of experience. Like you should be able to find another job. And you can if it's in the
In
similar
that,
industry
yeah.
or in a similar job function. And I was like, I'm not going to rinse and repeat this. That wasn't the point of me walking away.
Yeah.
The point of me walking away was to do what I want to do, which is some of these other aspects. And I recognized really quickly you need an in, like you need an advocate inside. And that's not an aha moment necessarily. A lot of people know that, but it is so real. It is so, so real. And so, right there, that first connection of community really started to spark, and the ability to have cast like a wide net with your network uh,
Hmm.
was something that I was like, wow, this is something I was way too heads down on for 15 years that I shouldn't have been, and I'm going to make
Yeah.
a pivot. And so I opened a consulting business, um, charging for the IP that I had. People were willing to pay for it, which was great, but it was a bridge for what I really was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, which was start a company.
Yeah.
And um, things just continued to kind of fall into place. I ended up joining a few different networking groups. All were really helpful and started bridging that gap for me that I was looking for. But I started dreaming up of this one that I was hoping all of them would be.
Mm-hmm.
And when they weren't, that's when I think it just started to snowball into this thing where I was like, oh, I think what I'm envisioning needs to exist. I think I really, really want it to exist. And so when my co-founder and she felt the same way, and we didn't even know it. We were just chatting about it one Friday morning.
Uh-huh.
Um, we just recognized like, wait, I think we need to build this. We both want this to exist and we can't find it. Let's build it. And then from there, it's taken off.
Sorry, my cat joined our
I
conversation. You'll see
love
her tail every she's a very bossy cat.
it.
So how is Bond different? Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of women's organizations, you see them a lot, but you dreamed of something different than
hmm
this. How is it?
We, I guess I'll say what it's not
Okay.
first. It is not networking. To
Okay.
us, networking is like you put your name badge on, you show up your best self because you're trying to get the next deal, the next job, the next board seat. And that is super important and really effective. Like you
Hmm.
need networking. I think networking is really important and you need it. Networking, in my opinion, so this is just mine, is also though where when you're done, you get back in your car and you exhale because you can like finally
Yeah.
be yourself, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, I can like finally be myself. That is not bond. Bond is where you are yourself inside bond. Immediately when you enter in, exactly like this conversation we've just had, you are not your most buttoned up self. You're not messy or sloppy because you're not. Like I
Right.
just was with my son in the middle of the night. I'm still not messy or sloppy. I'm put together. I know what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
intentional. I'm effective, but I'm myself through it all. And by not being myself would have been me perfectly buttoned up today, not acting like I had the night that I had. And so that I think is a perfect example of we are not networking. And I think networking is incredibly important, but that is not what we are. Then when you start to enter into, okay, so then your community, and I agree completely that we are more in the community layer. And I think there's a super clear delineation between the two, like networking versus community. And when you think about community, we are not just for corporate, we're for corporate women that want to continue to scale and grow. And we're also for founders. And we're
Hmm.
also for people that are a little bit of both because women need the ability to be able to decide where they want to go without feeling like they need to leave the room if they make a different decision.
Yeah.
So if you're only in a room only for corporate, but you're like, well, I think I might actually be a founder like myself,
Hmm.
we don't want you to feel like you have to leave because now
Yeah.
you're no longer in corporate and everybody in the room is talking about change management and mergers and acquisitions and all those different layers. You should be able to stay and still be able to bob and weave through your life.
Hmm.
The same thing goes with job function. We're not just for marketing or just for tech. So we made sure that this was something that women felt like, regardless of my industry change, exactly my story, I have access to all this different IP from other people from different industries and job functions. But it also allows me to bob and weave through life
Hmm.
because I want to and change.
Yeah.
And so we've made it so that there's room to grow and room for change within that. And then when we get into like some of the features, we are not just digital. We're not just digital. We also do retreats. And so we
Oh.
pull our members in. We have one coming up next weekend in Palm Springs. It's very luxury. It's very beautiful. And when we think about it, we think about number one, it's because we wanted to do it,
Yeah.
first and
Yeah.
foremost.
If you don't want to do it, then yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
like,
who
well,
else is
I'm
going
a
to?
mother.
Right.
My co-founder's not, but like we need a minute, like to just get
Yeah.
away, step away from it and think. And so we do retreats. We did one just last September in the Catskills. We're doing another one
Oh,
next week in
beautiful.
Palm Springs. And the one in Palm Springs is around human design and your aligned ambition through your human design. How are you uniquely built to lead? How are you uniquely built to make decisions? How, not just at work, in your relationships, in your
Hmm.
partnerships, with as a mother, not as a mother. And
Yeah.
so we are really, really intentional about this is not just professional. This is not just for your work. This is also personal. It's incredibly lifestyle. You see it in our branding. Like
Yeah.
we are really thoughtful that this should be something that our members, like ourselves, feel is just part of her. And it's a
Hmm.
resource that she uses for Sonoma recommendations, getting together with coffee with a member because she just needs to talk life and talk work. And then also talking about change management because there's something going on at work that she needs to confidentially have a conversation about with
Hmm.
members where she feels like she's getting the right advice inside.
I think that it is so important to have it be as multifaceted as you all designed it. Particularly women's lives are so nonlinear in the
Totally.
way that we are, if you decide to become a mother, right, you're thrown this huge change. And even if you are answering, one of the last women I talked to was talking about answering emails from her bed just after having given birth. So even if you're one of those type, or if you're the type that takes time off or stops altogether, there's so many different ways that we go about our careers and our lives and our choices. And I think that really embracing that nonlinear aspect, regardless of motherhood, your job, are you a founder? Are you an executive? Are you, doing all these pieces? And community driven creates such a great authenticity that then makes you want to open up about these, sensitive parts of your career. Are you trying to make a pivot to something else? Like you want to open up, I feel like, after you've, you know, been open and honest with
Absolutely.
someone and gotten to know them on that authentic
It's
level.
totally. And I think the other thing too is when you do open up honestly, that's when real work gets done. Because
Yeah.
if you're holding back the real roadblock because you're nervous people will judge you, no one can help you. Like if you're not
Yeah.
actually opening up about like there's somebody right now that's like my business is scaling too fast and I'm nervous about completing orders. That's a good problem to have. That's
Right.
like that is not you're not that is not whoa like woe is me. That is
Yeah.
not a bad thing. That's still a problem though, right?
Right.
So she needs to be able to feel comfortable in this confidential room. Everyone signs a code of conduct. It is
Hmm.
very confidential. Like she needs to be able to bring that to the bond members confidentially and comfortably and say, I'm nervous I'm not able to fulfill orders, right? Like in that example. And other members that are both employees and or founders themselves who have experienced this are able to say, oh, I know exactly, let me introduce you to so-and-so, or I know exactly how you can actually make that more efficient, right? Here's a
Hmm.
couple of software tools that can support you, or here's even, some whatever it might be. And so it just creates this refreshing feeling, this exhale feeling that I think is incredibly necessary and important, but it also creates efficiency because we're actually talking about the things that we need to talk about in order to, I hate this word because it feels so corporate, but like move the needle with some of the things that we're really trying to troubleshoot. And women, whether we know it or not, I think we're okay asking for help. I think the roadblocker I'm noticing is we don't even notice when to ask for help because we are so good at owning tasks. We're so good at getting things done ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we even feel like I'll just do it myself because I'll just get it done quicker. And it's
Yeah.
likely true, to
Yeah.
be
No,
honest.
yeah.
But at the same time, we need to be able to recognize, like, I don't need to problem solve this alone. Like, I don't need to figure out this task. I can just quickly pause, crowdsource it, and let other people who have either lived it and or are specialists in it at even their own organization
Hmm.
be able to help me problem solve this, and then I can go execute it. So it's helping her get where she wants to go faster, not necessarily like it's not necessarily like bogging her down by any means. She's going to get where she wants to go. It's just allowing her to get there in a more efficient and effective, manner.
Since creating Bond and seeing it grow and the women in it, has your idea of what leadership looks like changed from when you were in the corporate world to now? What does it look like? What does leadership look like now to you?
Yeah, I don't think it's changed for me. I feel like this was Bond was where I'm supposed to be because of my leadership style and because the way that I saw leadership, and the way that I authentically led the entire time. I
Hmm.
was somebody who never wavered on culture ever. If somebody was impacting the culture negatively, I addressed it and or terminated them because of it. It was something I
Hmm.
was not it was my number one over performance. The culture was more important to me than even people's performance. And that bleeds into why we are vetted within Bond, why we have a code of conduct, why the members take everything very seriously while also being incredibly relaxed. Like the culture is, you have to protect the container of the culture, which is the number
Hmm.
one piece. And then authenticity was something that I was incredibly passionate about as a leader as well. Like tell them exactly what's going on within the business so that they know the reality and they can rally behind. And those who don't want to rally, they shouldn't work there, which is absolutely okay. Like,
Yeah.
and then those who do, don't. The third and most important thing too, I think, with leadership is fit. I think so many times leaders try to force fit and they're not recognizing like he shouldn't work here. Like this guy doesn't like it here. You're trying to force this fit.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily like see himself leaving. And if you as a leader already recognize that the fit isn't there, instead of forcing behaviors and trying to get it to that it works and like make it happen, have a real conversation with this person around the fact that you see their intangibles, their talents better suited in a different role. Like there were so many times in a sales position where I saw people that were so much better in like a client services position or more of a relationship role. And
Hmm.
I would tell them that. Like it's not, you're not hurting their feelings. You're being genuinely real and authentic with them. And it's up to them to make the decision and make the change or even to take the advice. But if you don't share what you see as the leader and intangibles in terms of fit, and you're just trying to continue to force somebody that is
Yeah.
better suited in a different role into the role they're currently in, that's not doing anybody help. And the same thing goes with Bond. Like there's like it's so important to recognize fit. And even in the conversations we have with people who are interested in Bond, the number one thing that we tell them is we want to make sure Bond is a fit for you, not the other way around. Does Bond
Hmm.
actually come alongside and support you and your goals and what you're looking to accomplish? Are the women inside Bond the ones you're actually looking to meet? Because so often communities are looking to sell memberships and they're
Right.
not looking to actually put people in the right room that they're hoping for. And that is something that is a non-negotiable for us at Bond, is making sure that we are offering memberships to those that we believe actually need it and that
Hmm.
actually want to be in the room with that type of a member that's inside of the community.
It's interesting because it kind of it mirrors your own life's journey so far, where you were in corporate and then you realized you were in this other space and opening this up for women too. How do you think, as women, we can learn to identify when we're in the wrong spot for
Mhm.
ourselves? I feel like we power through so many things, relationships and friendships and jobs. How do you learn to identify when it might not be the right fit anymore?
It's a really good question. My husband and I'm going to turn my space heater off because I'm getting
Oh,
hot.
okay.
Even chatting about it. One second. My husband and I even were chatting about this, yes, last night, and like, which is so crazy. Like, identifying or like eventually naming that you're in the wrong room is so much harder than you would think it would be, which is why your question is so great. And everyone's, I bet, shows up differently. And this is so important not to give like advice here where somebody could hear this and be like, oh, that's me. And like they head out because that's
Yeah.
not always the case. But I can explain it from myself and maybe from a couple other people that have felt this clarity.
Okay.
There's somebody that I know that has made transitions quite often. And she actually leverages a framework and she thinks about strategically, is the next move for me the right move for me in terms of like resume building and thinking that way. So instead of thinking, is this the wrong room for me? She's thinking forward, where she's thinking, who's in the room? Do they have a future, meaning the company?
Right.
And do I add value, immediate value? If I was to
Hmm.
step into that company, would I add immediate value with my skill sets, my intellectual property, the things that I would bring before I even get trained in, right? So she's thinking, she's taking control of the wheel a bit and looking,
Yeah.
what rooms do I want to go into to start making an impact where I also can be impacted, which I think is really
How
powerful.
strategic. I wouldn't have thought like that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Mhm. And then you have the other side, which is incredibly important still, but I think probably more of the traditional way of thinking, which is like, well, how do I identify if I'm in the wrong room in general?
Right.
And somebody else gave me feedback a long time ago, and he had said, this is somebody else could take this and be like, yep, that's light bulb I needed. And a lot of people that I've shared have said that this has been helpful when they notice that they're the smartest person in the room. If you look around and you're the smartest person in the room, and this might resonate with you, it might not, that's when he decided that it was time to make a change. That was his moment of like clarity, like I've done my work here, I've
Hmm.
learned, I've grown, I've gotten promoted, whatever it might look like. But once he felt like he was the smartest person in the room, he knew it was time to look for something else. So kind of a similar pathway to the other example. And then
Hmm.
she was just really strategic with frameworking and figuring out strategically, where is my next room I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say is like so obvious, but we don't listen to it enough, is just like, are you yourself in the room? Like, are you actually yourself in the room? And this one's a bit more like vague because it's like, well, can you be yourself at corporate or can you be yourself in these situations? But like, if you have gotten to a point where you are so not yourself
Yeah.
and you like get that ick feeling and
Yeah.
like you get that almost like networking feeling where you are like you are buttoned up and you are like here, but then you get in the car and you exhale and you can finally be yourself. Like, just recognizing that that's just not the way that you want to spend your life and a lot
Hmm.
of hours of your life and a lot of time exchange for something else that or someone else you would want to be spending your time with, which was
Hmm.
my example. And so I think it shows up for people in a lot of different ways on how you could potentially identify it. Um, and I think also for me, mine was like listening to this internal push and pull of this entrepreneurial interest. And
Hmm.
that was something that I was like, I can't shut this off. Why can I'm constantly listening to how I built this? Why am I constantly inspired by these other people? Why am I inspired by this other person sitting at a table building a company at the coffee shop instead of inspired by like scaling on
Right.
my computer corporate ladder, right? Like, so listening to your own senses, listening to your gut, if that resonates as well, which was definitely my story, like continuing to take the steps forward on what that looks like as well.
Do you think that in the future, these like positions of leadership will become less about hierarchy and more about these ecosystems of support? Or do you think it's maybe more like business by business that that will happen? You know, I see some of these new AI company, I'll use AI for an example, but new startups, and they do seem so much more of an ecosystem of support where they're building as like a team around it. What do you think about
I
that?
hope so. I think it would be incredibly effective. I think there will always be a need to have a lead,
Yeah.
somebody who knows the bigger vision, somebody who's just got that natural high agency mindset that's pulling people forward if the morale is down. There will always need to be a need for that. The traditional corporate way of somebody's responsible for like the check-ins and the one-on-ones and the numbers and all of those things, I think could use a rebrand. And I think that sounds like what a lot of like the new companies are trying to figure out, like what could this rebrand look like
Yeah.
for leadership today? Uh, do I see it changing? I think that's a big boat to like turn.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I do I see it being effective for those that adopt it? 1000% I do.
You talk about, we started the conversation and you mentioned where you were working before being so great on your IVF
Hmm.
journey. Um, in what ways were they so supportive? Because I hear from a lot of women, especially recently, that that's not always the case. So,
Totally.
what could more companies do more like what yours did, to help support?
Yeah, IVF is a medical need. And it needs to be treated as that in corporations, no different than any other diagnosis. And it's not looked at that way in many companies. And I honestly don't think, speaking for myself, I didn't necessarily look at it that way either. I think if I got like a medical diagnosis, I would have felt like I'm going to call HR, let them know what's
Right,
going on. I'm going to look at my benefits. I'm going to make sure they know that I might need time off or all these different, like, I know they're going to support me because I got this medical
right.
diagnosis. Because we're trying to build a family and it's like a ideally happy thing and it's, like we're opting into this. I didn't, and nothing ever turned on for me to look into it that way. And
Hmm.
so I think that's number one is like us as women or even the partner
Right.
thinking about it that way. Like I should treat this and look into this as if it's a quote unquote medical diagnosis and
Yeah.
see what is available and what is out there first and foremost. Not just what I think might be available or what I saw in like my newsletter or my benefit packet. Actually reach out and say, confidentially, here's what's going on.
Hmm.
What resources, support, and tools do I have in my, like, from the company for my journey that I'm about to go on? No different than if you were to get a different diagnosis.
Yeah.
On the flip side, companies need to recognize that that is literally what this is as well. And it's just something that they need to continue to adopt. I got really lucky. No joke. As soon as my husband and I, we worked at the same company, actually, it's where we met.
Hmm.
But we decided that we needed to go officially through IVF after multiple rounds of everything else.
Hmm.
1 month after we decided it, we got the email from corporate saying they've officially implemented infertility support, financial infertility
I
support,
have
like
goosebumps thinking about that. Yeah.
1 month. But we hadn't even officially like locked it in with a doctor yet. And it was like, this is like the God wink we needed to just
Hmm.
like, we're gonna do this. This is incredible. This is amazing. So our story is very different than even people a year before us, right? Like,
Right.
or what have you. And so we are just so grateful. But this was also back in like 2019.
Okay.
So it's been a while, which is really great to just start to see that adoption take place and to recognize
Hmm.
that this is a benefit that does need to be absolutely offered, absolutely offered. And so number one, they supported us financially, significantly financially, especially because we are lucky enough that both of us worked there. So we
Mhm.
both got the benefit, right? Separately.
Yeah.
And that was incredible because we did have to do multiple retrievals, multiple transfers. Like it was a long journey for us. And so
Mhm.
having that extra support it was a game changer for us.
Yeah.
So financial absolutely has to be something that companies look into, and double down on it. Like this, like it just take out some of like the nice to haves, like some of the cutesy things that are
Yeah.
there, and really make sure that you're putting the finances and the resources into things that people like this really literally need. And it's
Mhm.
not just limited to IVF. Other people would get on and say their own story around something else. So
Mhm.
listen to the big rocks that are in people's life that's going to
Yeah.
make a huge impact for, and focus on those instead of like the cutesy little like ping pong tables, the,
Yeah.
sparkly waters, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then the other part that we got lucky with, oh, and also unlucky with, was it was 2019, right before COVID.
Right.
So we had in sales the ability to be remote kind of already.
Okay.
And so having that freedom and flexibility to be able to go to an office without outing ourselves that like I'm trying and we're
Right.
attempting this, was something that was really nice for us, that we were able to do this a bit quiet in terms of time. But even then, I let my direct report know, like, hey, this is something that I'm going through, just in the event I have to miss a meeting or what have you. And
Mhm.
they were very, very supportive and understanding of it. And so that needs to happen as well on even just a managerial level. Like your direct leader, if you are a leader of somebody that mentions they are going through this, you have to give them the freedom and the flexibility. They don't have an option to not go to that doctor's appointment at that
Right.
exact time. Like this is
Right.
a science and a time. Like it is so important that it's timed right. And so if you're a leader and anybody has the guts to tell you that they're doing this, like they're already putting themselves out there, the number one thing that you can do is give them the freedom of time without questioning them, without over asking any questions, without anything. Just give them the freedom and flexibility of time to manage through the responsibilities and the obligations that it's going to take to get that done,
Yeah.
um, in their own private way.
Do you think there's has been maybe a stigma behind IVF for women, maybe even that we put on ourselves? I think of that hasn't been something in my life that I've struggled with, but I have anxiety and depression, which I deal with. And there are those things of being like, can you admit it to yourself? Can you admit it to other people who is safe to admit these things to? IVF is very different than that. But there are some similarities being like some people don't have this at all.
Mhm.
And isn't that, great?
Yeah,
But I do. So do you think there is a piece of it that's being like maybe
100%.
stigmatized or
Yeah, because at the same time, anything that makes you different than someone else makes you different than someone
yeah,
else, right? And then anything that makes you feel like you can't control it, but your body's doing it anyway,
yeah.
is really hard. And that that absolutely a like for like example, right? Like there's no, as much as you are like wanting to control
Hmm.
your experiences, I was wanting to control my outcome as well, and it
Yeah,
didn't matter, right? And so I was obsessing over like I need to be gluten free, I can't drink alcohol, I need to like no caffeine, all these
right.
things, and like
Yeah,
it still wasn't working, right? And like even through IVF, we still had lost a child, like even though I was so controlling over anything I could do to
right.
make it work. And that has to be the same for you in a lot of ways, I can imagine, where you're like, I need to control all these different levers to make sure
Right.
I control the outcome. And it's probably really like just frustrating when you're like,
Right. When it's still not
what
working
the heck?
the way
Exactly.
it should be. Right.
Exactly. And so I think anything that makes you feel different than someone else is going to do that. And then I
Yeah.
think anything that you're like, why can't I fix this about myself? Even though it's not something that you should ever feel like you have to fix. Like,
Right.
but if you feel that way, which I did,
Yeah.
or like what's wrong with me feeling, like what's
Right.
wrong with me? Why isn't this working? Like
Yeah.
this is supposed to work for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, it absolutely is something that you get in your own head about, and it hits you at different times, and other times you own it, and other times you're like, this sucks,
Yeah. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too.
Because you are so bright.
Thank
Um, obviously. And it just strikes you when you have a conversation with you. And so authentic. And they don't always go hand in hand. Sometimes I feel like really bright people like hide behind being really bright and they don't talk about these vulnerable things, and you've been successful in building this for other women. Why I wanted you for this Bossy podcast. See, I can't even talk anymore.
you.
Podcast. Where my daughter is called Bossy by her teacher is
Mhm.
because you embody like the best of what the word can be.
Oh, that's
And
sweet.
you're helping other women to own that about themselves too. If you can imagine Bond in like 5, 10 years from now, what would it look like? Still or differently, or where do you see it?
Well, thank you. That was a very, very, very nice compliment. And I do want to get back to your daughter, by the way, because I want to dive into that topic very, like a lot. That was something I was excited about chatting with you about this call. So that's something I want to lean back on. But I I think like we built Bond, my co-founder Parmian and I built Bond because we wanted it. And we thought, okay, I'm 38, a mother of two. Actually, I was a mother of one at the time. And she was in her young 30s at the time, partnered, not married, and no children. And
Hmm.
if we were trying to solve the same problem,
Yeah.
there has to be other women out there that are feeling the same way, right? And so we built it for us with the intention of thinking about who else could this be for. So there
Hmm.
was this really nice push and pull of like it's for us first and foremost because we want it to exist
Hmm.
and we're members of Bond. Like we didn't build a company to be like, hope you like it. This is it.
Yeah.
We are members. We are using it. We are asking questions ourselves. We're being vulnerable in the platform as well. We're attending sessions ourselves and having conversations. We're going to the retreat ourselves and going to be interacting and being in the mix just like
Yeah.
every other member. And the reason that I say that is because we didn't build something with the 10-year goal in mind. We built something that we needed in this moment, and we're continuing to do that as our members come in, and we get to see now who is it that said yes to Bond? Who
Yeah.
is it that's continuing to say yes to Bond? And I always say we built it like a par-baked pizza on purpose, like half-baked on purpose. And I hope it always stays that way because it allows us to be nimble. It
Hmm.
allows us to listen. It allows us to observe as we evolve as women and as
Hmm.
the members evolve as women, so will the needs of Bond. And
Hmm.
so, will we own our own retreat facilities someday? And by facilities, I mean like really beautiful boutique hotels. Do not picture like a retreat facility when I say that. Like, I mean
Yeah.
beautiful luxury boutique
Yeah.
hotels. Maybe. Do we own a clubhouse and that our retreats or that our members can go to get work done with a coffee shop inside? Maybe. Do we do something we can't even envision right now because that starts to present itself as a resource that will be helpful
Hmm.
for our membership? Yes, right? So that is something that I think is like it's the most uneventful response because I'm not going to be somebody that says this is where I hope Bond is going to be in 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
That's actually tangible and that you can picture. the number one thing I want it to be is still around, still effective for our members and for myself and for Parnian,
Hmm.
and constantly evolving into what's actually helpful and actually resourceful for the people that are opting into it, that are like betting on Bond to actually be a resource that's helpful in their life, in their connections, in their professional world, in their problem solving, and beyond. So
I
it's
think
very TBD.
No, I think that's the best answer. It reminds me of, when people asked Walt Disney, when it was going to be finished, and he was like, as long as we still have like imagination, it's never going to be,
Oh, right. Yeah, there
finished,
you go.
and
Yes.
he was a genius, and it's not finished. They're in in Dubai now, and they're
Yeah,
here now, and it's always
that's
growing
a
and
great
changing.
quote.
So I think that's the perfect answer for that. But yes, my daughter's Bossy experience, as I'm sitting and the table in front of me is covered with her latest business that she and her friends have started making bracelets, and they're being entrepreneurs. And so we had to buy the website with their name on it, which was very
Amazing.
cheap because, it was, besties and bracelets in case anyone wants to see it. Yeah, for like a $4 website, right?
Perfect.
That it was,
4.99. That's
yeah,
great.
exactly. But just so I love that spirit about her. And I was like, if only boys could be called bossy too when they're younger, because we also don't want to curb too much of that great fire that little boys have of growing and pushing boundaries, just like we don't want to with girls. Some girls we have to encourage it more. Some boys you have to encourage it more. I remember my brother was shy, and John, I love you, timid, and he watches all of these. And singing show tunes, right? He was like a big show tunes guy, and then playing sports and just doing everything. And now he is just the best father and everything. But you do see girls particularly, being struggling with being called names when they're certain ways,
Mhm.
and growing like that. But I think that's the most fun part about being a parent is getting to flip the script, and we came up with this podcast as a way
Well,
to
lean into it.
embrace that. And, one of my friends who is from Brazil, she was like, I say this story all the time, and she was like, you should have bought the teacher flowers and been like, thank you so much for recognizing this about my daughter. But
Mhm.
it is definitely a need that girls and women have. I'm so shy, usually, and I'm like, I try to learn from all of you women that I talk to about how you own your story and like live it out so beautifully, not effortlessly, but
Mhm.
beautifully. And it is just so great to be able to see.
I think it's so amazing that you're doing it. Like as soon as you explained it to me, I was like, okay, 100%. And it's I think especially now I have two boys and it's one of those things where and I have two nieces and they you recognize I have more than that for nieces and nephews,
Yeah,
but I'm relating it to the girls. And you recognize that you I recognize myself in one of them in particular, and I am purposely really intentional about pouring into that because while it looks bossy, they're young. They don't necessarily know how to control delivery of their
right,
language or their tone, or they don't know social cues yet, right? They
right,
don't know how to be thoughtful in their execution and
right.
tactful. So it comes across bossy. And it's actually
Yeah,
really immature to use that word for a young child as
yes,
an adult because you should recognize that children, they don't have that ability to like filter their deliveries just yet.
right,
And so if they come across like loud or bossy or demanding, like those words are like you as a adult are not doing a good job filtering your
Yeah.
own words to recognize like they're not meaning to be those things.
Right.
They're and like what she's doing when you're bossy, you're being a leader. You're
Yeah.
being decisive. You're being opinionated. Like you have a voice. You're being confident. Like that is the actual undertone descriptors of what an adult so I think immaturely called bossy
Yeah.
instead of recognizing like, okay, she's being a leader, she's being opinionated, she's being in a good way.
Right.
Opinionated
Right.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
She's being decisive, she's being like she's participating,
Right.
right? Because if you're not bossy, you're
Right.
sitting back letting somebody else like you're spectating.
Right.
So she's doing all these wonderful words that is great character building words. And because she's at this age, probably 6, 7,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
years old, it's coming across as your immature description as bossy. So
Right.
instead, as a teacher, in my opinion, and as a parent, we need to lean in and be like, hey, buddy, in my example, because I have
Yeah.
sons,
I say
everything.
buddy to everyone. No, I do. It's like
Like,
my
hey,
daughter. Yeah.
buddy, I love that you have a great idea here. Like, I love that you have that you want to be a leader in this. Like, I love that you want to lead your friends in this. Like,
Hmm.
but next time, like, let's not yell it, right? Or like,
Right.
next time, let's ask other people to do it with you, right? Like, you need to teach course corrective those behavioral things that we now know as adults.
Hmm.
Slight little things that you can do in those moments, but you have to recognize the positive qualities that are happening in that umbrella that they
Yeah.
put under the word bossy. And I'll give you an example. My parents found a letter. I have to find, I'm going to try to find this and I'll send it to you and you can like put it in
I
the
like, I
context.
already want to see this. Yes.
They found a letter the from one of my like kindergarten or first grade teachers. So again, I am not old enough
Right.
to censor my delivery, censor my any of this, right? And I got a very similar letter that was like, she's bossy, she corrects me a lot, like all these things. Like, first of all, like get it together as a
Right.
teacher, like
Yeah.
handle it, like you're tattling on me to my parents. But
She
like
corrects me a lot.
yeah, and it literally is like she's bossy, she corrects me a lot, like she all these different things, like and even in front of the other students, like whatever. And my parents, this is within the last 5 years. They find this letter, they send it in the group chat because I'm living in SF at the time. So they send it in our family thread. Everyone's dying because they're like, this is so Meg. Like, of course, this was like my husband's even like, this is my wife, like a hundred
Yeah. Yeah.
percent. And my response was, she misspelled blah blah blah. Like in her letter, she literally like misspelled words. And so like even in my
She was
response,
probably so fired up though. You can feel like how
yeah,
fired up she
and
must have been
or
about
like
this.
worthy of correcting her,
Yeah.
even at
Or,
like
yeah.
kindergarten. Like here I am at 32 years old at the time or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, she deserved to be corrected because even in this letter, she like misspelled like a very
I
basic word or whatever.
feel
I have to find the
like
letter.
that letter needs to be framed. And if you do have like clubhouses or a retreat, it needs to be hanging in like every single one of them. It needs to
Yeah,
be like the
right.
symbol of like, because what we try to or have in the past tried to keep girls from being are the type of women who also are like in bond, who
Mm,
you want in
totally.
bond and who
You're so
we
right.
want to see. And like I told my daughter, I was like, bossy women are the women who change the world.
Hmm.
And
Because think of the underlying descriptors.
yeah,
Those are beautiful traits. It's just somebody like made up this silly under umbrella word that
yeah,
like has this negative connotation that's usually tied to a girl
yeah,
because like she's annoying or bossy or whatever. And like, but look at the descriptors. What is she actually doing in that moment? She's leading, being decisive, all the things I just said. Like, those are really amazing traits. Somebody just decided up here that that's going to be called
yeah.
bossy because she's 8 and
Right.
is fully understanding delivery at time or the right time of the day in school to actually make that announcement or
Yeah.
correct the teacher or all the different like things that are taking shape.
Yeah.
And I'll say one other thing, like no wonder a huge topic for women is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
No wonder a huge topic for women is like, can I do this? Am I good enough? Should I show up? Should I use my voice? Should I bet on myself? Should I take this leap? Like,
Mhm.
we've been told, myself included, through that stupid letter, like, not to.
No, yeah, you're
Even
right.
like just subtle hints of like, you shouldn't speak right now, you shouldn't do those things. Like, there's a difference between like manner correction, and like
Right.
those need to be learned 1000%,
Right.
but not like voice submission. And like that to me is so different, and that needs to be so like there needs to be a clear line drawn between manner correction
Hmm.
and teaching them how to show up and use those strengths versus like we don't boss people around.
Yeah.
Because if you hear that enough, you are going to
Yeah.
start to be like, oh, I shouldn't speak up, or I was told enough not to use my voice here, or not to share my opinion here, or not to be
Yeah.
decisive here, or not to care here, right? So now you're fast forward 38 years old, you have this great idea, you want to bet on yourself, but like, is this where I do it? Like, can I be decisive here? Can I have a voice here? Should I show up
Yeah.
here? It starts to resurface itself. And so getting rid of, which is exactly why I think your podcast is so cool. And kudos to you as a mom for being like, I'm going to take this like course correction comment from the teacher and I'm going to flip it on its head and I'm going to lean in and I'm going to like bet on my daughter and the fact that you're getting her a domain because she said she wanted one and all those things. Like those are huge things where you're leading by example on like seeing the good adjectives underneath the umbrella of like a really a word that needs to go away.
I love that you said bet on yourself in your first answer. When I asked your first question, I asked you, you said bet on yourself. And then you said it again now. And I meant to say something about it at that time. Because you were talking about being in San Francisco where a lot of people were betting on themselves and starting things. I think that's like the big, if you could have like one takeaway from the conversation, I would really say for women to bet on themselves and to
Absolutely.
see what can happen. Because you never know until you try it. And so thank you, Meg. I could
Yeah,
talk to you all day.
I know, me too.
I
This
don't
is
have to record
wonderful.
it. But I would like schedule another meeting with you and so that we can like talk more. But thank you, and I hope that you have time for a nap or a coffee or whatever
My
you need.
parents, this
Yeah.
is actually like, so my parents are picking the boys up today and they're
Oh,
doing a
nice.
sleepover at my parents' house. And my mom said, should we get the boys this afternoon? I was like, take them now. Come get them
Yeah,
now. You can
yeah,
get them now. I love
yeah.
my children, but today is one of those days that I'm like, you
It,
know what? I'm going to embrace the help and they can go play. So,
I'm so
yeah,
glad that you get that. It was so nice to meet you. It was
so nice.
honestly um like the best start to the morning for me. So thank you very much for that.
I
I hope you
enjoyed
have a
this.
great
Well,
rest of your day.
thank you so much. And tell your daughter good luck on her besties and bracelets
Oh,
adventure.
thank you. Thank you.
Love it.
Have a good day.